I'm Matthew Kurbis, the subscription attorney, and this is Law Subscribed, your dedicated source for all things subscriptions and the law. Thank you to my sponsors. See links to them in the show notes. Everything discussed is only for educational and entertainment purposes. Enjoy the show. I'm thrilled to have with me today the ditching hourly guy, Jonathan Stark. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So, your title, if such a thing is accurate, and I think it is, if that doesn't give it away enough, for my listeners, if they haven't come across the Ditching Hourly podcast or your newsletter, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yep. My name is Jonathan Stark, and I'm a former software developer who's now on a mission to rid the world of hourly billing. In 2006, I had kind of an epiphany while I was managing a firm of 10 plus developers, and I realized in a flash that hourly billing was causing every problem in the firm that I was aware of. So I went off on my own to try and find a different way to do it, which I did. And I've been teaching that approach ever since.
Meta question for you. Mm-hmm. In teaching that approach, do you use the billable hour?
Oh, God, no.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, I'm dog fooding. I'm eating my own dog food over here.
Good. Longtime listeners are familiar with that term. We're the more startup savvy, founder attorneys. Most attorneys who have ditched the billable hour or are thinking about it are like, and ultimately have to start their own law firm because good luck pivoting in a traditional hourly space, and actually moving everybody. So let's start there, because you said you were working at a place where there was, the billable hour and it wasn't working, and what you've been doing for teaching for so long. Are you finding that you're able to bring companies along for the ride, or are these like independent software developers or professionals who have to leave to go start their own thing to ditch the billable hour?
Yeah, it's a heavier lift if you're doing a whole firm. And when I had the realization, I realized that, billing hourly is causing these like fights over hours with our clients. It's the reason we're under bidding jobs. It's part of our compensation. It's part of all of our software systems. There was this built-in assumption there was going to be a billable hour. It was part of our incentive for the employees. All of these, it was infested. The entire business is this just fundamental assumption. And I didn't know what to do instead. I just was like, this is a problem. So I actually explained this to my boss at the time. And he was like, I see what you're saying, but I don't know what to do about it. And I was like, neither do I. So rather than risk the mortgages of all my friends, you guys just keep doing what you're doing, and I'm going to go solo and figure it out on my own. So that's what I did. And it didn't go perfectly, but it went amazingly well. And now years later, when I teach this to people, it when they have a lot of employees, it requires a lot of buy-in, all of those things that I listed, employee incentives, how you even think about employee utilization. I mean, all of this stuff dramatically changes. And I know from talking to other people in the legal space that there is a lot of hourly thinking in politics infused throughout organizations. It's in the culture. It's like a cancer that has infected the culture of the firm. People are doing things like hoarding hours, and it's just crazy,
Yeah. And I think my audience is going to be happy to hear that this is true, or at least it was true. Hopefully maybe less so now, but I don't know. We'll hear from you if it's still, prevalent or not in the software industry, because we know in the financial space, like CPAs, there's a lot of flat fee there, but still a lot of hourly billing.
Yes.
We know like consultants, your big consulting firms, hourly billing there, right? So lawyers have looked to those industries and whatever. I think we got the billable hour idea from CPA firms, like if you go way back, right? But that software is another space where, billing time was very prevalent. So, you said you made this realization in 2006. We're coming up on almost 20 years, Jonathan. So, have you like, how's the mission going?
I mean, honestly, it's tough. It's tough to tell because I'm inside the bubble of people who I automatically attract people like you who already, this makes sense to them, but it really does seem a lot less bizarre. The idea seems a lot less bizarre to people now than it did, that long ago. Like in 2006, the firm I left was one of the top firms, and I was fairly well known because I was an author and I was writing in the physical magazine, the trade journal, and people were like, what are you doing? How are you going to do that? How are you going to grow? How are you going to survive? It's impossible. what other way is there? So it was extremely unusual in 2006, or 2006 is when I went solo, but I realized it maybe 6 months earlier. And yeah, but it ended up working out. And it seems, I mean, lots of people have been doing talking the same stuff for a long time, but not specifically for like freelancers and independent consultants, which is kind of my sweet spot. But I do think there's progress. Yes, I do think there's a small improvement has taken place.
Yeah, I will. As an independent myself, I mean, I'm a solo practice attorney. I own a law firm. I like to say I own a tech company that happens to be a law firm because we lawyers have monopolies on legal services, in each of our jurisdictions with some loosening rules in some states. But I will network with a lot of freelancers because I'm like fractional general counsel, right? And I am myself an independent. And so I have a lot in common with them. I help them with legal services. And I find that when I'm working with them, providing them legal services on a subscription, they have, my goal is not necessarily to get them off the billing time, but it inevitably comes up when I'm either networking with them or working with them that what are they doing billing their time, right? In particular with Gen AI for like copywriters who are like helping develop copywriting or editing for books and other things, like they're billing by the hour, like at least bill by the page, like something, because you're going to get the results so much faster with Gen AI. Change all passive voice to active voice, done in a second, with Gen AI. But they're still billing. A lot of them are still billing by the hour in the freelance independent space. So it's interesting to hear you say that, because we haven't had that conversation on this show before, how like other industries are also facing like this crisis. So I know there's a lot there, so I'll let you respond, and also feel free to talk about how Gen AI is interrupting, the hourly model.
Yeah, I think it could be, it will, I don't know if it'll be the nail in the coffin, but probably not. But it certainly shines a spotlight on the issue, which is, wow, if this thing that used to take me 8 hours takes me a minute, and then with maybe some revisions after that, how do I make any money if I'm trading time for money? And this goes back to, God, I mean, there's just so many things wrong with hourly, but this goes back to the reason I had the epiphany in the first place was because we had a bunch of developers. There was one really, really good developer who we paid about $90,000 a year. And there was a junior developer who we paid half that. And we billed them both out at $150 an hour. And they were both okay. They were both good enough. They were hired. But the one that was really good, he would crank through projects super fast, and he didn't have to do the work over again or fix anything later. And then the person who was junior, it would take a much longer. And he had really good bedside manner. So his clients were fine. They were happy. But we made so much more money on the slow guy. And this was when I had the epiphany. I was like, if we were going to hire someone new, we'd want to get a whole bunch of mediocre, slow developers. And I was like, and not train them. Right. So now an AI comes along, and an AI is like a graduate, depending on what kind of work you do. It's like having a free grad student doing really good grunt work for you. That is, it's not, you're not going to send it out into the wild as is, but it's like that super fast employee. And you're like, now what am I going to do? So that becomes this idea of, do I not get better at what I do? Do I consciously decide to ignore a powerful tool that would make me better and faster at my job? Like that's the crux of it. Like my joke is that for software developers, it's like, why would you ever buy a faster computer if you bill by the hour? It doesn't make any sense. You spend $5,000 for a really fast machine. Why? To make less money. There's no rationale for it.
Yeah, and like the free versions are the grad student. You want to pay $20 a month. Now you've got a master's. They've got a master's in English. And if you want to pay or an art, and if you want to do what I'm doing, which is I'm paying for legal specific Gen AI. Now you're talking about like a 5-year associate skill level for $100 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, to pay a person to do these things, like the cost benefit analysis just doesn't make any sense anymore. And I don't think this is taking anyone's job, in particular in the legal industry. I mean, I don't know, like in software development, I have to imagine the sky is the limit. In a services-based industry like law, like you need people or businesses that have legal problems or want to avoid legal problems. But there's still like a massive latent market for legal that we're never going to have. Like there's 1.3 million US lawyers. I like, there's one lawyer, for every, for like 1 to 300, I think is the ratio in the US.
Mm-hmm.
But not, we don't all have 300 clients. And that doesn't include businesses. So if you now count all the businesses, it's like 1 to 500, if not even 1 to 1,000, right?
Mm.
I have 2 businesses, just me, and I'm one person, right? So, the podcast is under its own separate legal entity, So,
Right.
so I think that it's not going to take anyone's jobs. It's just going to increase market opportunity because, and now like I could scale to have more clients before I would need to make that first hire. But eventually, like you could only scale so much, even with these automation tools, even with AI and all that. But you're right. It is kind of like having a person on your team because it's a natural language communication.
Right.
Is that I realize like maybe you're not doing software development anymore. Maybe you are, but are you using like Gen AI in any ways, or how are you leveraging the tool?
I use it all the time. Yeah. So I do write my own software for my own business still, but I don't code for money anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I do use Gen AI for a lot of things because I write so much. I write a daily mailing list and I've got a bunch of books. And so like recently I had a book that I was selling on my website. I decided to put it on Amazon, but it never had a back cover because I was just selling it as an ebook. So I needed a back cover for the print version. And I just uploaded the PDF and I was like, write marketing copy for the back of this book based on the content. And it's just like one try. I think I changed one word. It was perfect. And I mean, stuff like it's just unbelievable at certain things. It's not great at everything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I got out of the prediction business a long time ago. I hope that what will happen is that it will slowly kind of proliferate. Because I still know, I mean, as hugely popular as it is, I still know a lot of people have never touched it. Like people in my family, there's not that many that have even used it, ChatGPT. So, it'll proliferate slowly. It will change the landscape of what jobs are, and kids that are my age now, 14 and 10, they'll just grow up in this new model and there'll just be a whole list of job titles that never existed before. The same with the internet, where there's no such thing as a web designer 20 years ago or however far back. It didn't even exist. And now there's millions of them. So there'll be millions of something new probably. And hopefully it's a relatively smooth transition.
I would think so. And I would hope. And like my prediction is, as far as like the AI of it all, I think it's probably just going to all go into the background. And like you said, like it might be a slower rollout than those of us who are, in the vanguard and using it every day. But it'll be like how now everybody probably uses the cloud. They just don't necessarily think about it because it's built into apps and software and storage and everything, right? I don't think anyone out there is saying, I'm an adopter of the cloud. You just are. Because like you're using
it.
Yeah, you're using technology. So I think Gen AI will be similar, where I think it might still sort of persist in that it's looked at as AI is in these like chatbot or speaking, type interface, where like chatbots of yesteryear, terrible, like the worst, right?
Mm-hmm.
But some of these chatbots, in particular, if it's trained on company data and like actual human responses and what's good and what's bad and all that, like far better customer service experience. And I believe probably it's going to be better than some human customer service experience in the future. And for law firms, like we could leverage those tools for if we're not available, but our clients still have legal questions. And maybe they can't give legal advice, but they could give close to giving the answer. And we could train it on how we've actually responded to folks. And that is, it could be a subscriber benefit. Like talking about not billable hours and how do you otherwise productize your service that you're providing, right? Well, how about I've trained this AI chatbot on how I actually respond to things and analyze things, and now it can do it when I'm not available. Right?
Yeah, I actually have done this. It's
do tell,
crazy.
Please.
Yeah, so I have a private community called Ditcherville, which is full of freelancers and consultants who are, leaving the billable hour behind. They stopped trading time for money. And every other week since 2017, I've done a live Zoom call where we do just Q&A for an hour, 2 hours. And I've got all of that recorded. So when new people come in, they can go back through and listen to the recordings. But recently, I took all the recordings and all the transcripts and trained a chatbot on them. So instead of having to watch through 200 hours or 300 hours of video looking for an answer to a question, then they can just ask it. And it answers like a librarian. It doesn't answer like it's pretending to be me. It says, oh, well, you asked the question, what's so bad about hourly billing? It says, well, Jonathan has said these things. and then it links to the different recordings or articles or other public podcast episodes. And it gives a pretty good answer. In fact, it's given some amazing answers, like, wow, that's exactly what I would say. And then if somebody asks something really edge casey, fringe kind of question, it'll give a decent answer. But then it links to the places where it got the answer. And so you can just go read from the horse's mouth, or listen from the horse's mouth. And yeah, and so it's a benefit for being subscribed to this community. You can ask me questions in there, but if I'm not awake or I'm not online, then you just ask the bot and go read the article. And there's so much content that you almost need a librarian, and I probably already answered it better in the past, so you might as well just go look and see what I already said.
Yeah, I mean, is that like a you trained your own GPT, or are you using some other software? Like we love sharing tech on this podcast, so feel free to drop all the tech. I have some legal tech sponsors, but they don't mind. Like tell all the tech that's out there.
Yeah, this is a company called, what is it, twinbox.ai. They're new. They reached out to me early on, and have sort of been with other people, I'm sure, a beta customer. I've been kind of giving them feedback about what would work better for someone like me, and they're great. They're super responsive. They've been implementing all the suggestions. I tested it with the community with maybe 10 or 20 people. I was like, try this thing out. It's new. It might give terrible answers. It might say the billable hour is great. Who knows? But 100% unanimous thumbs up, gave great answers. And so they just keep releasing features. Like, you can just plug your RSS feed into it for a podcast, and it'll just consume the podcast and transcribe everything, train just sort of a private. It's not technically one of those GPTs that you can do with ChatGPT, but they have a comparable solution, and it's really good. There's some surprises here and there. If you have guests on, it might answer as if what the guest said is what you said. So there's some of that you want to filter out, but you can just frame it properly and say, this is someone on this episode said this. It might have been the host, it might have been the guest. Sometimes it can actually tell. But yeah, twinbox.ai, 2 thumbs up from me. They've been doing a great job. And then you just stick this widget on a web page, and it totally works.
Yeah, and the fact that you've got it also locked behind like a subscription as well,
right?
And you're able to, like, somebody can't be a non-subscriber unless you wanted to. Are you able to prevent a non-subscriber from getting access to the bot because it's like a login type platform?
There's a login. Yeah.
Okay.
What I would like to do is make certain stuff. We're getting in the weeds a little bit, but there are certain things or conversations that I had in the community that I wouldn't want on my public website, because that's just not the deal. But it would be cool, maybe this will be a feature, that I could segment pieces of the knowledge base that I uploaded and say, okay, if this is from this URL, my public website, don't return links to anything that's behind the paywall, or return a different link. And then it turned into an upsell. So like, they could ask a question, you could give an answer. The sources are these, and these. These 3 are free, but this one is inside the community. So if you want to read or listen to that answer, you need to join. So it could be a really cool marketing tool.
And I think it is applicable to lawyers who are leveraging the subscription model. And so the technology is pretty much there. And sure, it's going to get better, but the segmenting thing, sure, you could do that from a potential client to a current client, analogizing this to the legal perspective, but also you have to be able to, as a law firm, like I would want to train it on all of my firm data and all of my client data, but the clients from each other can't access each other's, because we have to preserve the privilege of attorney-client privilege, right? So being able to do that is really important. So we're going to share this episode with your friends over at twinbox.ai. We're going to make sure they hear this so they can develop, because I want that tool. Like, as the subscription attorney, like, I want that tool, right? And I think other lawyers will too. So that's really interesting to hear that that's out there. So I think it's worth it to get into the weeds a little bit on something like that. So
cool.
Now, so we've got a lot about your background, about what you do. Now let's get into like even more of the nitty gritty, right? So like when you're helping folks ditch, in Ditcherville or ditch the billable, what do you call them? Ditchers? What's the nickname? Ditchers.
Yes,
Okay.
they are ditchers.
Yeah. I've been thinking for like clients, not for lawyers. What am I going to call my subscribers to law subscribed? Like subscribers, like lawyers, lawyers. It's not like there's nothing there. But for my law firm is Subscription Attorney LLC, and I was thinking about doing a rebrand at one point called Offload Legal, or like a separate brand, because like you offload your legal to me, I take care of it, right? That's become like one of my pitches at like, is like an elevator pitch, right?
Yeah.
And then I could call them offloaders, but I don't know
That's
that
awesome.
I don't know if that sounds right though, because it sounds like freeloader kind of. So,
Freeloaders. Yeah, a little close.
right?
It's funny though. It's funny.
Yeah, so I'm playing around with that. I'm playing around with it, and now at some point, in the next, I am recorded in advance, and this is like definitely an evergreen episode. But
Yeah.
whenever I have several weeks before this goes live that I have to decide whether or not I'm going to do that. Now that I've put that out there on the internet.
Well, if you were trying to attract clients that had a good sense of humor, that would be probably pretty good brand alignment.
You think so, right? Now I'm only
Yeah.
licensed in Illinois, and that's the problem, right? With
Yeah.
with software development, anywhere, right?
Mhm.
Law is still backwards in a lot of ways. So the ditchers, like what you're teaching, like I have to imagine, fixed flat fees, value-based billing, subscription, combinations, other things. Like tell us about all the other, if this is one of the lawyer's first episode they're listening to of Law Subscribed, and I just don't know. Yes, I guess subscription. What are some of these other ways that like options that they have? Obviously without giving away the secret sauce, but at a high level, what
yeah.
are these things?
Right. Well, the people in there are generally all subject matter experts of some kind or another. They're good at what they do. They know what they're doing. They've been doing it for probably 5 years minimum. And it's a lot of software developers because that's my background, but it's also a lot of other remote kind of workers like web designers and copywriters and even some lawyers and accountants and architects. So they're generally, almost without exception, soloists. There's a couple of small firms, and the main focus is on how to price your expertise, how to package and price your expertise. So as you mentioned, there's value-based pricing, which I would use for custom projects where the client comes in, they've got this urgent, high-risk undertaking that they've maybe got only one shot at before the next Olympics or before Amazon comes into their space. And they want the go-to person for that thing or some piece of that transformation or thing that they need built. They want an expert because they want to de-risk the situation. They want to make it more likely that they're going to succeed, and they've got the money to spend to do it. So that creates a situation where the value to the client is extremely high to have the assistance of this person, perhaps on an advisory basis, pure advisory. It could be on some kind of project oversight basis. It could be an initial strategy engagement, but all of these things you could price based on how much it's worth to the client and not how much time it takes you to do. So that's kind of that's where I started. It takes a lot of practice to get good at that because you have to understand the thinking and how to control scope creep and all of these things because you're given these fixed prices. And then there's a sort of middle for Goldilocks, the bed in the middle or the oatmeal in the middle is productized services, of which I would categorize a subscription as a kind of productized service. A monthly advisory retainer is a kind of subscription service of a productized service, but it's a fixed scope service that you offer at a published price. And usually this means, in order to do one of these successfully, usually it means picking a very specific buyer, like an ideal buyer for this exact scope, and putting a price on it that is almost surely going to seem reasonable to the right buyer. And you sell it like a product, but then you deliver it like a service, hence productized service. So it could be something like, I don't know, in your space, maybe setting up an LLC, or that's probably super commoditized, but things like that. It'd be like a one-time thing. It takes you anywhere from a few hours to maybe anywhere from 2 to 20 hours spread out over the course of maybe 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And you've got a process, you've got a system, you've got an intake, you've got, offboarding at the end, and it's just cookie cutter, boom, 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 boom. You just do these. They're reasonably high profit. They're not as high profit as a really high end value price project, but the benefit is that your sales effort is almost nothing. Maybe you have to answer an email or something before someone decides to buy it, but you don't have to get on the phone with anybody. The productized piece of this is that it's on your website. The features and benefits are there. Whatever's included is there. Here's how it works. Here are testimonials from happy clients, and they just click buy now or they don't. So
I wish there was. So this is maybe going to Ditcherville as potential software developers could to develop this. What I'm about to explain is, I wish it was as simple as checkout in a cart for lawyers.
Mhm.
I think it could get there. There is no solution that is self-serve, change subscription levels, check out in a cart,
Mhm.
wall off. Like you could get some custom software. You could play that game if you want
Mm.
to.
The
But when you're
changing subscription levels thing is a rare feature, but there's plenty of software that would allow you to sign up for a subscription. Like Stripe
so
directly does that.
so at least as far as I know, unless I actually know how to do a little bit of coding, I can't do like a client facing. They could go in and change their subscription level in Stripe.
Correct. Yeah, I think you'd have
Right.
to do the changing the if that's well, I think there's
Self-service.
totally self-service. I think there's one called Memberful. There's got to be one out there. I'm sure of it.
So there are WordPress plugins. I hate WordPress. So
This
like,
one
yeah.
plugs in the one I know someone who runs a Circle community, circle.so. It's a membership community. It's like a forum with, are you familiar with it? Okay. And they use, I think it's called Memberful to manage this exact thing, to
Mhm.
allow people to up and downgrade their subscription. You're right. I use Moonclerk, which is on top of Stripe. And when people do want to change their subscriptions, I have to manually do it. So they buy the new one and I cancel the old one.
So
It's not that
so
big a
annoying.
deal.
So
It's not that big a deal.
I get it, and it's not a big deal because it's not such a pain point for me that I'm like actively trying to go out there or custom develop it, right? Like it's a
Yeah,
very
yeah,
minor pain point.
right.
But as a true solo, trying to serve clients in a volume-based practice, because I'm
You're right.
charging very little, like we're talking about $20 a month, $50 a page for me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For like base level pricing,
Mhm.
I do have higher flat fee services for known projects. I mean, your insight into this is pretty incredible. But I would even say that, and sponsors of my podcast, Gavel and 650, help lawyers productize legal services. More so Gavel because I could do client-facing forms that they fill out and it auto-populates the documents that we've productized. So I don't need to
Cool.
spend 2 to 20 hours. I could spend 2 to 20 hours building the automation, and then it's zero time because the
Yeah.
clients could just click on the link, right? I send them the link,
Okay.
and
So
it
at
does
that
it all
price point,
themselves.
that sounds great. A cool name too, Gavel. But
Yeah.
the at that price point, you're right. I would want it to be completely self-serve. So check out Memberful. There's got to be. I'm sure there's a number of them out there. There's got to
So
be.
there's one called Copilot. Like it's copilot.com, but
Hmm.
they take a higher percentage than
Yeah.
Stripe on top of what Stripe is already taking. And at
Hmm.
that point, it's not worth it. Give me like a flat, predictable subscription, and I will happily pay a monthly price. But let me scale that thing like crazy without you taking a percentage on top of what Stripe takes. So they do it, but it is a premium, right?
Hmm.
So there are solutions, but they're premium, and for the prices I'm charging, like you, I'm just gonna manually go in and do it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the checkout in a cart thing too would be phenomenal because right now I still have to. The client sends me a message in the client portal. Hey, I want to do this or that.
Hmm.
Okay, here's I invoice them. Here's the link to do it. And then they fill it out and they do it right and they get it. So
Hmm.
prenup, simple estate plans like those are not per page because I've automated it. So it's actually even less than $50 per page when you look at the per page pricing for those already automated documents. So like my
Hmm.
clients are getting a great deal. Right? They're getting a phenomenal deal, and very few lawyers are playing in this space, even the subscription-based attorneys, right? So I'm really
Hmm.
subscription plus flat fee.
Yeah.
And then for like my freelancer clients or small business clients, I will just charge a much higher monthly subscription, like a premium monthly subscription, and
Hmm.
it's like scoped projects. It's approximately 3 to 15 projects, and that will determine what your monthly rate is.
Hmm.
And it's just in it, we might go under, we might go over, but we just sort of keep that going. And for me, I don't have to count pages anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's just like it's like I'm a fractional team member, you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm.
I mean, are you seeing anybody doing that in Ditcherville in whatever industry?
Oh yeah. Hmm. We sort of refer to it as an all-you-can-eat subscription service. It sounds like what you're describing. So I've got a few developers who I think one is a solo, another one has a small firm or at least a partner, and they just started selling, let's say $5,000 a month for unlimited requests, feature development, or whatever, and they just do as many as they can. And their goal is to release enough features each month so that the client is happy, and then they keep paying. So like at the end of the month, the credit card gets hit again for another $5,000, And the client's going to think, well, what did I get last month? Oh, that was definitely worth $5,000. Or the experience of working with these guys is so easy. It's great. It's like an outsourced dev team on subscription. And they before they even launched the sales page for it, they sold 2 or 3 of them just talking about it to other people. So I think the idea of, now that pretty much everyone's familiar at least with remote work and they don't necessarily feel like people have to be in the office, and the idea of outsourcing just gets more and more obvious with things like Upwork or TopTal or 99 Designs or what have you, that this idea of subscribing to a service is not that weird. And it feels like an employee. It feels like that the monthly cadence of it's always the same. And no surprise invoices. Oh my God, it was 3 times more expensive this month because you guys worked a lot of overtime. There's none of those surprises. So clients really like it. The right kind of client who knows they've got a big backlog of features that they need to release. And if they could, it would decrease churn on their SaaS or something. They're going to hire these guys all day long.
Right. Now, I do want to...
And they are all guys.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're probably using that term loosely, but also literally, yes. I suppose. So yeah. I do want to pull one thread there. And you said at the end of the month. What about at the start of the month? And this is why I talk subscription specifically, because there's a lot of books and resources on the subscription economy and thinking about like things in terms of subscriber benefits. Because if I bill at the start of the month, then those are subscriber benefits that they're either using or they're not using. And when they've already paid you, what do they want to do? Maximize their subscription benefits, which even better aligns incentives, right, for them to stay subscribed, because they're going to ask for feature requests. They're going to ask for this because that $5,000 was paid at the start of the month, not at the end of the month. Is anybody doing that?
Yeah, they're all doing that. I'm just saying, when the next month's rolling around and they're going to have to pay for another month. Okay. But yeah, they're all getting paid on a credit card, 100% upfront, no invoice. I don't know. I don't think any invoicing. It's just, they just run the card and the card gets charged at the beginning of the month and they submit their tickets wherever it's totally automated, no phone calls. Right. And just, yeah.
I mean, so I guess, that is actually a good thing then that you said. So in that context, yes, you do have to think, okay, they're going to try to maximize their subscription benefits. But I guess the way that I think is another way that they might think about it, the client or consumer is, okay, did we maximize our subscription benefits last month?
Was last month worth it to us, right? Yeah. Or are things getting slow? Maybe we should pause this.
Or whatever. And the nice thing about being an independent and a true service provider is I try to have those conversations with my clients ahead of time. Hey, you haven't really been sending me, as many projects, this month, send me stuff, whatever you're working on that you think you can handle yourself, this is what you're paying me for, send it to me. Or maybe we need to revisit and go down. Or you're sending me way more projects for the last quarter than this subscription is for. I think we need to bump up the subscription, right? And so you can't be afraid to have those conversations, right? And I do month to month. So if my clients want out or I want out or whatever, that's one of the benefits of month to month for both sides. Are you seeing your ditchers doing month to month, year long, quarterly? What are you seeing?
Month to month, just like you described. And if they're smart, they're proactive about decreasing churn, because if someone's not using it, you're like, oh, that's a churn risk. And churn is, when you run a subscription style business, churn becomes your like a huge concern, because you already got the client, like you don't want to lose them. And assuming you like them and it's working out, you want them to stay forever, pretty much. So yeah, it's everything you just described is exactly what I would recommend.
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit about some tech, but we love tech here. So other tech tools that you are using, you're seeing other people use that help with efficiency, maybe even just subscription billing. Obviously, you talked about Stripe too. I use Stripe. That's my preferred payment platform as well. Client portals, other things. What's sort of in the non-billable hour space, technology is like the thing, because you want to be more efficient with your time, right?
Right.
Yeah. So share sort of what have been some of the coolest tech that you've used, that you've seen, used by the ditchers and all that.
Well, Stripe, I use Moonclerk on top of Stripe. That's no big deal. I use since most of my people are from the software space, I use Slack for communications and for the community itself. It's not the perfect fit for a community. If I wasn't working with people who already had Slack installed and were in it all day anyway, I probably would use Circle or Mighty Networks, depending on the audience. Those are more bespoke community platforms. But we talked about AI already. I use that quite a bit to increase my efficiency. There's also, there's lots of different kinds of AI though. It's not just ChatGPT. Grammarly, I use constantly. That is my editor. That's saved me a million times. It's running constantly. Here's a non-sexy one. I use something called A-text, which is it's kind of like a text expander, so that I can have short keyboard shortcuts to reply to emails or to share like links that people are always asking for that I can't remember the whole link, or especially responding to emails, because I get a lot of email because I run a daily mailing list. So people reply to those, and somebody will say something, somebody will give me like a really nice reply and say, oh my God, this changed my life. And I've got this keyboard shortcut. Oh my God, you made my week. Would it be okay if I shared this with the list, or would it be okay if I shared this on my website? And fine. If not, it's like a 20 or 30 word response that I more or less, it's the same every time in this situation. But, my text expander, I mean, that if I lost all of the things that I have in there, that would be crippling. That would be really bad.
I wonder if, do you use Google Workspace or do you use Microsoft? Okay, so Workspace. So I'm sure you've been prompted to integrate Gemini with your Google Workspace. Have you tried using that yet?
No.
I have to
Which
imagine.
I think is funny. I think it's funny that I haven't.
Right. Well,
I don't want to switch.
Well, you're getting the value of what you're already paying, and you have this A-text thing that you're using. But I have to imagine in the future, Gemini or Copilot for Microsoft, because I'm in Workspace as well. But a lot of lawyers are in the Microsoft ecosystem, and Copilot is like that, their version of that, right? So, like, it will just do that automatically based on the training. Like all your prompts with A-text. There's got to be a way to train Gemini in your Google Workspace in the near future to just respond. You don't even need to read those emails, Jonathan, in the future, I think. I think that's what it's going to be.
It'll just be AIs responding to AIs, talking back and forth.
That's the dead internet theory, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the problem with the big reason why I haven't switched is not just lock in with Google, which is a concern, but it's that it's not integrated at the operating system level across all my devices where this other stuff is. So it doesn't matter if I'm, because the response that I might use in my email, I might also use it in Slack. I probably do. There's probably a lot of things that it doesn't matter what communication channel I'm in. It might be LinkedIn on my phone. So I want to have access to that stuff globally across my entire device landscape, I guess. And it's not, I wouldn't want to be like, oh, I got to go into Gemini and open up a draft email and post it. I don't know.
So just for the listeners, so I could share the link. It's a lowercase a, capital T text, right? And the website is actually like tranquynam.com.
Yeah, that's the developer's name. I think he's from the Philippines.
Okay, Tranquy Nam Software.
Yeah.
Cool. Very interesting.
Yeah, but I only picked that. I picked that one for a very geeky reason, which is that you can use Amazon S3 as the backend. I wouldn't necessarily, if you're not a developer, I would just say just get Text Expander. I think is the most popular one.
It is. And even some Text Expander light features are actually baked into a lot of legal tech because lawyers are typing the same thing, and particularly in the billable hour space for like billable entries. There's a lot of that Text Expander stuff because you can't bill when you're billing, which is a whole other, conundrum, and makes it easy for me to convince lawyers to stop billing their time. Okay. Oh, no, this is great. Any other like tech tips? Any other sort of fun tech?
Oh my God, so many. I have a whole list. Dropbox I use even though I have Google Drive. I use Google Docs quite a bit for collaborative editing on things like sales pages or email sequences, that kind of thing with coaching students. If somebody doesn't use Google Docs, I can't work with them, period. So whatever the parallel is in the Microsoft world, I don't know. I assume Word, Cloud, whatever it is, has some kind of shared editing. But yeah, I wrote down a list of all the things I use just to send my email list. I use ConvertKit for my mailing list. I have 10 or 12 tabs open all the time in my browser. Remember the Milk is my to-do. I have a very specific sort of time management productivity process that I use inside of a to-do list app. So
Are you time blocking? Is that how you're managing everything?
No, not at all. That doesn't work for me. I know that works for a lot of people, but I'd say about 50% of the people I work with, time blocking does work. For me, it doesn't. My schedule is too fluid for that with like little kids and stuff, personal stuff. So I just keep a recurring list of about 20 daily to-dos. And, every day the goal is to do them all. The next day they all come back. I do them all again. The next day they all come back. I have weekly ones. I have monthly ones. I have first of the month ones. I have last of the month ones. I have quarterly ones. I have annual ones. And so every day all I have to do is open up my task tracker and be like, what do I have to do today? And I do that stuff.
Remember the milk is what it's called.
Yeah, but it doesn't. I mean, every Todoist is another really popular one. Remember the milk, I love for the same reason I use some of these other software things, which is unique to me, which is I have a lot of different devices. I used to be in the mobile space, so I have an iPhone and an Android phone, so I needed stuff that worked on both. So that's kind of an unusual constraint. So most people could just use whatever the most popular thing is, and they'd be fine.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I've been playing around with a brand new tool called Amy, AIME. And they are trying to solve using AI. They're just like a more advanced calendar and to-do list type deal thing, but they can integrate with your email to automatically using AI create your to-do list based on your email and also automatically time block in your calendar. And I haven't found a tool that does it yet. And I'm just using the non-AI features right now because that's how they upsell you is, hey, you want these AI features. You have to pay us. I don't know. It's not expensive. It's $7 a month, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very close to trying out those AI features. So all right. So I mean, like a whole list of software and all that. And another one, I'll tell you that I'm in a group on there called School, SKOOL.com.
Oh yeah, Hormozi's thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you know about it. Yeah. So the guy it's like a lawyer group on there, and it's only $99 a month, and it's all in. Like you get everything or whatever.
Yeah.
That all these other platforms they try to sell you, 3 different price tiers.
Yeah.
So he loves it. His name's Sam Alai. He's like a big content creator guy too in the legal space. So okay, so you're aware of School because I don't have a community, but if I did, I did kind of like that platform out of all of them. But you're right. Like where are your people if they're already in Slack or whatever? That's probably just the easiest thing, right?
Yeah, I really, really like Circle, but I didn't want to make everybody move and have another app. They all have Slack. They're in it all day, so.
Yeah, that's the conundrum of the switching costs, right, and potential churn if you want to switch everybody over.
Exactly.
But you don't pay for Slack. I hope not.
No, it's a free version, right? So
because it gets expensive if you're paying for all those people.
I couldn't do it in Slack if I had a paid version. Would be like $18,000 a year or something. It'd be insane. Yeah. So. Yeah, but they do keep making it worse and worse on the free plan. So someday we might get kicked off of there. They got bought by Salesforce. So.
Yeah, you write though. So and you do the podcasting. So what's the technology that you're using to power the back end of that stuff?
Yeah. So the writing, I just write in a regular text editor as if I were coding. And I too hate WordPress. And since I'm a developer, I have a sort of hand-rolled website system that I built myself. There's an open source version of it you can link to if people are real nerds. But yeah, I type it into a box, press submit, and it goes to ConvertKit. It goes to my website. I used to have it go to all the social media platforms, but now I'm actively actually on LinkedIn, so I turned that off. And so yeah, what else is going on there? The podcast I use Riverside to record. We're in Zoom. I use Zoom sometimes, but Riverside is real nice too. That has a bunch of AI features in it, which are useful. And then I take that. Sometimes I use Descript to edit it. Other times I just do it in Audacity, depending on how the sound quality was. And then I publish that in Transistor, which I absolutely love. If anybody's looking for a podcast hosting platform, go to transistor.fm and you will be happy that you did. It creates, you can have it create its own website. You can have unlimited podcasts. There's all sorts of interesting things you can do with private podcasts, even if you only want to have one main podcast. But Transistor is absolutely great.
Yeah, I do a popular CLE, continuing legal education on podcasting for lawyers. Mm-hmm. And the private podcast thing is something that does keep coming up, like a clients only podcast style thing, right?
Yeah,
which you got to be able to do that. Cool. I'm using Substack even as the back end for mine, simply because it does a lot of that same stuff. Now it might be more limited in certain things than what Transistor is, but you've been writing for a long time and you have ConvertKit and you have these other things. I did not have that. So starting from scratch to have a newsletter and a podcast platform all in one place, and you could do private podcasts and you could do a custom domain. So I've found I really Substack for that, and I'm also really bad at SEO. I don't know. It sounds like maybe you're not even trying to do SEO
I don't
anymore.
think about SEO at all.
Yeah, and but what Substack does a really good job of is doing all my SEO for me. And I don't know
That's
if
true.
Transistor does that.
Transistor, they don't, it's not like that. I mean, I didn't even know Substack had podcasting bolted onto it now, but
And video
uh,
podcasting too. And so one of the
mm,
things, and this is my podcastly reminder that if you want to see the video of this podcast, go to www.lawsubscribe.com and you can
yeah,
see the video of me and Jonathan. I'm starting to post the videos elsewhere too. And Spotify, you could manually go in and upload the videos to the automated pickup of your RSS feed. So I have been doing that, but
yeah,
really like the video goes live with the newsletter with when the podcast publishes, and I click one, and it's a newsletter and video and podcast all with one publish click or
that's
schedule.
interesting.
I'm
Yeah,
scheduling.
yeah. I know
I'm
what you
not.
mean.
Yeah. So, but Transistor's great, and it's on my list of things for the lawyers to if they want to do their own diligence or they don't like Substack, check out Transistor. But I've never used it, but
Yeah.
it's good to hear that you're getting a lot from it.
I'm not an all-in-one guy because I know how to plug things together and I don't like to be. So one of the things that has plagued me over the years is that I have like tons of SOPs and checklists.
Mm-hmm.
And for the things that I can't have an AI and I don't even have an assistant, but there are certain things I do that are have a million steps and I don't want to reinvent the wheel every time. I don't want to burn creative energy trying to remember, oh, did I shut off Dropbox before I started recording? None of that. So just go down these checklists. And so the paint is very dry on these things. So when a platform changes, it drives me crazy. And having everything in one platform that then changes would be like an asteroid level event for my business. So I try and and SaaS always changes. They always change. It's very rare to find a SaaS that is just, nope, we are feature complete. We are going to stay like this, and we're going to maybe build a new SaaS somewhere else. Moonclerk's one of the only ones I've ever had that barely ever changes.
Basecamp doesn't change a lot, right?
Well, until they completely change every version, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
right, exactly.
yeah, that's a perfect example. But they were good about it. They'd let you stay on the old one as long as you wanted.
Right.
But I've changed probably every single one of those things. My webinar platform used to be Crowdcast. They completely rebuilt the interface in a V2, and now it's all buggy and doesn't work and lost some of the features that I liked. So now I'm back to Zoom. So having everything in an all-in-one, it does get you up and running really quickly. If you're non-technical, there's some really good ones out there. Kajabi is another one that a lot of people use that kind of tries to do everything. There's a Kajabi competitor called Podium, I think, that is something similar like that. And then you get platforms like Teachable that's trying to add memberships, and then you get membership platforms that are trying to add, membership platforms that are trying to add courses. So eventually there's probably going to be a dozen.
Yeah, like Substack, because Substack is a membership-based platform. And if you wanted to do private chats like you're using in Slack, you could do that in Substack as well. And you could also just wave people in. So if you wanted, I mean, Substack doesn't like that because they only make money when you make money. But if you wanted to do it through Stripe and wave them in Substack to have a private chat with subscribers only, that is a thing you could do in Substack, which, I'm not even using, but it's on my product roadmap.
As a large meta comment, it's like all of these course platforms and membership platforms and subscription platforms are merging because there is a demand for self-education that's more organized than just going on YouTube and learning how to fix your dryer. So It seems like there are these communities of practice that are coalescing around some thought leader or some person in the space like you who's got a particular area of expertise that's different from everyone else, like this combination of subscription and legal, let's say. And that there's this desire for community, education, and I don't know, access to direct consulting kind of thing, all in one place. So I think we'll continue to see more platforms morph into this. And then, I mean, who knows how AI is going to affect it all? Probably the same way that I'm using it, which is that inside of the community, there's an AI librarian that knows all my stuff. So big picture, it probably doesn't matter which one you pick. It'll probably eventually change in some way that you don't like, and then you'd switch to a different one, or hopefully you can. But it's an interesting trend. I feel like there's something going on there where it's like people don't maybe it's the cost of higher ed or something, or maybe it's that they're later. Most of the people I get are sort of in their late 30s, early 40s, starting to have kids. And they're like, huh, I got to get off this hourly treadmill. Who can teach me? I don't know what to do. Who can teach me this? And then they Google around and they find the ditching hourly guy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there's certainly not a lot of like podcasts covering like what you're covering, what I'm covering still. And there were some more when I got started 3 years ago, and they are just not out there anymore. They stopped. But so two more questions for you. One of them is, what is the secret? Because there are a lot of lawyers interested in getting into podcasting. You know, you've 348 something episodes, you know, at the time of recording. You know, what's kept you going? What's the secret?
oh, if podcasting very easy for me. I usually don't. I usually do it like a phone call, so no video, so I can take notes and come back to things. I just love talking to people about it, I just love talking about this stuff. So, you know, if I can bring someone on that has experience in some niche like you'd be a great guest on Ditching Hourly. We should maybe set that up after.
Sure.
But yeah, so, and just like picking people's brains and then just sharing it with the audience, you know, because I'm not kidding, like on a mission to rid the world of hourly billing. If my headstone said this guy actually rid the world of hourly billing, that would be like a huge win for me. So how am I going to do that? I can't do it one person at a time. Doing it in this kind of a format, I think it is very effective in terms of convincing people that it's possible. There's something about hearing someone like in your ears and seeing them talk about it it communicates a lot more than just the transcript might. So it's very useful. It's very easy for me. If you're doing it without video, it takes 2 seconds to edit stuff. It takes no time at all to upload it. Video is a lot more complicated. So yeah, audio podcasting for me is I'll go on any podcast at the drop of a hat. It's so easy.
The only reason I started doing video podcasting is because Substack made it so easy. I'm editing the same thing in Descript anyway, and I'm uploading it anyway to Substack. So I might as well just turn it into a video podcast. I'm not doing any extra work. You know. My last fun question for you. This has all been fun, but my fun question is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
It's a taco. Come on.
You say that, but I mean, then is a taco a sandwich? Via the transitive property, then.
So, you know? of course, I've had this conversation around the house. It's not a sandwich, but the joke is that it's a taco because of the shape of the shell.
3 sides. The thing is covered on 3 sides. Yeah. But then, you know, what is an open-faced sandwich?
Disgusting. No.
But if you're actually trying to eat an open-faced sandwich that's not with a fork and knife, what shape does it resemble?
Yeah, taco. But that's not an open-faced sandwich. That's not a thing.
Oh yeah. Look, I was never a thing for me, but my wife grew up in the SF area, and they have open-faced sandwiches. Like avocado toast is an open-faced sandwich.
That's toast. Come on. I mean, the only thing I can think of from growing up, because I'm like 55, so we're talking 70s. And my parents are from the Midwest. So the closest thing I can think of to is a pizza an open-faced sandwich? The closest thing
you're one of the few people that yeah, absolutely. I'd say yes,
no.
Without question. Without question, pizza is an open-faced sandwich. That's correct.
Okay, so what you're saying is words don't mean anything, and you can just use them for. You're a lawyer. Come on.
Words mean very specific. I'm a lawyer. My trade is in words.
Okay. So when I was little, my mother used to make Thomas's English muffins with tuna and cheese, and it was like a tuna melt, and that was not breakfast. It was not a breakfast sandwich. It was a lunch thing, and it probably where my disgusting comment came from. It was disgusting, but you know, is everything with bread a sandwich? Bread and anything a sandwich? No, a sandwich is to me, a sandwich is 2 slices of bread with stuff in between them. So like a grinder or a sub that you might call in a different area, but in Rhode Island it's called a grinder. It's a grinder. It's sort of like a sandwich, but it's a specific subtype, I guess. It's not.
Is that why they call it a sub? It's a sub sandwich.
Maybe. No. Well, I think it's because it looks like a submarine, but it's not a submarine either.
Right. As much as we could talk is a hot dog a sandwich for a whole other hour. Jonathan Stark, I mean, stick around for 2 more minutes if you can. But if people wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to get in touch and all that?
Yeah, you can just Google my name or Google the ditching hourly guy if you can't spell Jonathan. But yeah, if you want to learn more about value-based pricing specifically, like you could go to valuepricingbootcamp.com and it'll redirect you to a free email course I have. Yeah, those are the best places.
And you said LinkedIn because most lawyers these days, like that's their social media platform of choice, so they could also find you on LinkedIn.
Sure, yeah, if you want to. I have not been on since, I don't know, what year is it? Maybe 8 years I have not been on social media. In the last 3 or 4 months, I started taking LinkedIn pretty seriously. So you could find me there, Jonathan Stark.
Okay. All right,
But
great.
before we
Well,
wrap up,
Okay.
is chili soup?
A sandwich?
No, is chili soup.
Oh, is chili soup? Okay. Um, I don't actually eat chili. I've never eaten chili in my life, so I'm trying to picture chili, but you make it in a pot like you make soup, right?
Yeah.
Sure, chili's a soup.
Well, we can leave it as an exercise to the listener if chili is a soup or not.
Okay. All right. I love. I think you might be over 100 episodes. You're the first guest to throw it back at me. I like not the first person to ask me what do I think is a hot dog or sandwich. I get that all the time, but giving me a question like that's a first. I love it. All right. Well then, like I said, stick around. But Jonathan Stark, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Anytime, my pleasure.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Make someone's day by sharing this episode with them. The best way to get in touch is to follow and message me on LinkedIn. To get extra content, subscribe to the newsletter at www.lawsubscribe.com, where you can also become a paid subscriber to get episodes and content early. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.